It really does take a while. I think, because you see it still says 0 people up there. But there's people here, so hello everybody. Not sure when you can start hearing us, but hello Jackie and Laurie and Catherine and Susan. And, well, they're chatting a lot. Hey Tariq, hi. Welcome, welcome, you can probably hear us now. So, welcome to Amsterdam, detailed Amsterdam number 27. I have my beautiful colleague here because I am injured.
But you need someone to help press buttons today.
Absolutely. Lee's really good at pressing my buttons. Okay. Hello, Emily and Carol. But, hi, Natalie. So let's get on with it. I can't believe it. Week 27. Pretty amazing. So that's enough of us. You'll probably see us again a bit. Last week, I ended talking about the Lutheran church, the old Lutheran church over here. And hey, look, there's the Kruitberg. So that's this is a very churchy area. Definitely a very churchy area. So we are on an area called Spui. Now I want to teach you how to say that. It's Spui, like imagine it's spelled S-P-O-W. Spui. Almost like row. So when you see it as S-P-U-I, you're not going to go Spui, are you? You're going to go Spui. Okay, can you tell me how to get to Spui? Okay, now what Spui means is sluice. Now sluice is a body of water really. It's not a lock, it's generally when there's just one gate. And everything here was water. Actually, I've got a map to show you. Let's see how we do this again. Here the map. So here's old Amsterdam. And where I drew a blue line, this is actually should be flipped the other way to be correct, but that is the body of water Spui that we're standing on now, which is obviously no longer here because they filled it in. So this was the southern boundary of the city. And on the map, as you can see, I've made a yellow blob. That is the area that I'm going to be talking about so much, the Begijnhof. Okay, just to give you a little orientation. And I can see there's chat. So let me just get my spectacles out so I can see your chat.
No questions.
Okay. Oh, hello, Adrian. I'm so glad you could join. No, this is not from trying to fix my boat. If it was from the boat, I'd probably have like bloody knuckles from having punched the boat in frustration. Hey, Hillary. Hi. No, this is just an operation because of an old injury, but enough of that. So, that's where we are. Now, I've got a little video to show you where we are in the city. So here's one of my favorite old maps. This is hanging on my wall. So we're zooming in now to Dam Square over the Amstel River. And that is Single. That's the canal we've spent so much time. Last week I was walking there where my finger is, and then I was coming up here. And now this piece of water there, that is Spui, and you can kind of see the rectangular thing of houses with the open space in the middle. That's the Begijnhof that we're going to be talking about today. So let's see, we're back on Spui. So it's filled in the 1800s. They filled in a bunch of things around here, and here's a picture from where I'm standing now. You can see the water ahead, and look on the right. There's a building, and you can actually still see the building on the right there. How cool is that?
I've never seen that photo.
Yeah. So this photo is copyright free. I do want to say in advance, there are a few ones from the city archive that I forgot, so I didn't have time to put the copyright thing on. So I'm going to do that verbally. This one didn't need it. So here we are on Spui. And over here, this road is a canal that was filled in as well. Okay, that's the, yeah. Oh, Lee's finger. Thank you, Lee. I couldn't have done that without you. Okay. Okay, it's both point. Okay. And there's a bunch of bookshops here. There's the American Book Center, wonderful bookshop. Across the road behind us, actually, is the Athenaeum bookstore. I love this one as well. Look how well this, oh, you don't need the zoom, but look how well the zoom works, Lee. It's just amazing.
Wow.
And hello, Bonnie. And then there's also Waterstones. So the English, the American, the English, and the super Dutch bookstore. And the big building on the right is known as the Maagdenhuis. And then there's a beautiful Art Nouveau building down there. There's a stunning building over here, a neo-Renaissance one. And so other things to talk about on another day. The one on the right was actually a Catholic girls' orphanage, and it's now part of the University of Amsterdam. And these great big trees here, because normally somebody asks me about trees and I don't know. Well, this time I know. Okay. These are Dutch elms, the big ones. And then these four here, just tucked in the middle, are London plane trees, which are kind of pollarded. And they make this lovely, lovely kind of little leafy canopy in the summertime. So, there you go. Trees. Now, what I'd like to talk about now is the miracle of Amsterdam. Okay, so let's get a photo on screen. Okay, the miracle of Amsterdam. How do I get the chat back? There we go. Okay, now, picture this. 16th of March, 1345. There was an old man, and he lay dying. And the nun and the priest came. It was a Catholic town, and they gave him a sip of wine and a piece of bread, and he died. So it wasn't really very much of a miracle for him. But before he died, and this is the important bit, he vomited up the bread. That was the host, okay? So this was the formal final rites. And there's various versions of this story. But I think the most plausible one is that his wife she brushed up the vomit, and the bread, the host, was holy, it had been blessed, and she brushed that into the fire. She thought that was a good way of disposing of it. But behold, it did not burn. Okay, it actually hovered on the flames and it glowed. And the nun put her hand in and took the host, as you can see here, and her hand, it was not burnt with either. And that was declared a miracle. Okay, and I think we'll just park that story there because there's a lot more to it, but that's really just all that's relevant for this tour. And that was celebrated, so we had a holy relic now in Amsterdam, and then people would come from hundreds of miles, thousands maybe not that far, and to pay homage to this holy toasty host. And there was a medieval walk through town, and then during the Protestant period the procession was banned, and that was from 1578. So they still did the walk, but they did it in silence, and it's known as the Stille Omgang. And actually in the 1950s, 90,000 people used to come to Amsterdam to do that. Nowadays it's about 5,000 people. Okay, so that is a bit of background about the miracle of Amsterdam. Now the next thing I'd like to show you, and I just hope this person moves now, is this doorway here. No, he's definitely going to just stand there. Okay. Oh, he's waiting for the door to close. That's fine. So there, look how lovely the colour is in there. It's just so inviting, isn't it? Okay, so this doorway is relatively new. It's from 1907. I'll show you the building here. So it's just one of the two buildings on this block that is not a national monument. 1907. And it became the doorway into this area. I'm going to just zoom you down quickly so you can get a look inside, because the door opens and he will stay there. And so you will see, I'm going to show you a photograph from the other side here. So you will see, this is looking out. So you walk through there and then you go, see that lady there is coming up some stairs. Those are the stairs on the right that you can see. Now the level down there is actually the old medieval level of the city. Because remember, this was water here, this has been filled in. And what they're doing is they're staying there for the door to shut completely so that members of the public don't walk in. Okay, and I'll explain more about that later. Okay, so what I do want to show you is the picture above the door, okay, which it says what this area is. It says Begijnhof, and then here is a picture of a saint. So let me just zoom in on her, and you see it says Saint Ursula. So there's a female figure, and she's got a cape, and there are all these other female figures underneath her cape. Could you just hold that there? So let me tell you the story about Saint Ursula. Okay, she was a very beautiful princess. She was raised Christian, and she was betrothed to a heathen prince. Perish the thought. She consented, but there were conditions. And the conditions were that she wanted 10 noble virgin handmaidens and to accompany her, and each of those handmaidens and herself had to have 1,000 virgin maiden attendants each. So that was 11,011 people. How they found so many virgins in England at the time. Anyway, they were then going to go on pilgrimage and visit all the shrines of all the saints. And then the heathen prince and all of his court had to be baptized as well. Okay, talk about strings attached. Anyway, off they went by boat from England to Cologne, up the Rhine to Basel, over the Alps by foot, and then to Italy, and down the Tiber to Rome. And there the prince was baptized by the Pope. Mission accomplished, okay? So they decided to go home. And they were accompanied by the Pope and his cardinals and his archbishops and bishops and patriarchs and prelates. Okay, they crossed the Alps, they got to Basel, off to Cologne, and what happened? Huns attacked them and killed everyone except Ursula. Now the heathen Hun king wanted to marry her, and she refused him, and he shot 3 arrows into her breast. And her symbol is the arrow, and she is the patron saint of young girls and virgins. So goes the story. How do they check? Ronnie, naughty. So goes the story, okay. There's a lot of people coming in and out this gate, so let's just get out the way so we're not freaking them out. Now, if you go to Bruges, in St. John's Hospital, or St. Jan's Gasthuis, however you want to say it, they actually have a shrine there to St. Ursula. This beautifully decorated shrine by Memling, the painter Memling. It's gorgeous. Telling the story, and actually inside the shrine is her arm. Okay, so that's how it goes with relics. Anyway, so it's still just setting things up. Another story, now that we've got a little bit further away from that gate, let me zoom out actually, is the story about Beguines. Because on this gate, now we can go, I forgot to show you, let's just zip back. It says here, it says Begijnhof, spelled in an old-fashioned way, with an A. You wouldn't do that now. But anyway, that says Begijnhof. So let me talk about Beguines, and I got a picture of some here for you. Where are they? Oh, you know what I wanted to show you as well? I forgot. is a picture of the square, as most squares used to be in Amsterdam. It was a parking space. So the area that I'm standing now was just used for car parking. How strange is that, huh? And what an improvement. Okay, let's just get this right. Okie dokie. And let me try and find a picture of the Begijns. Oh, here we go. So this is what Begijns looked like. Okay. Now, they were very devout and they had to be single women. And they actually chose to live, let me just try and get this away from the chat, in poverty. And they led, very pious and chaste lives. Being chaste was a thing as well. They had to be chaste. And that's C-H-A-S-T-E, by the way. They worked in the community, in hospitals, leper colonies. They often treated the sick in their own homes as well. So they did a lot of good. And they lived in these kind of convent-like situations. And they had to live under the guidance of a priest because they were Catholic and the church didn't want them straying too far away from, what they considered to be the correct interpretations of the time, shall we say. So they lived in these closed communities. They were walled off and no exit or entry from sunset to sunrise. They attended Mass every single day. They prayed. They listened to sermons. And they were, however, different to nuns because they didn't take lifelong vows and they could leave and get married later if they wished. So that was why I always think it's a really good place that you could, just park a daughter for a while if you weren't sure who to marry her off to and you wanted her to keep out of trouble, keep intact, as it were, and get an education as well. So from 1346, we had Begijns here because, remember, the year before was the miracle. And there was nothing like a miracle to be like a magnet for Begijns. And they lived in what was known as the Begijnhof. It was just a house. And then from 1389, they actually had this enclosure here. 1389, it's amazing, huh? And it was surrounded by water. So where we're walking now, this was water. And we're just coming up to the main entrance. So now this is very much considered the side entrance, but there was a bridge across here. So I'm going to show you a map in just a moment. And what I put here is a blue line on the map. Oops. Hey, it's still open. I thought it would have been closed. And to show you, so let's just pull back here. Okay, so here's a map from, when is it? I think it's 1544 or something. And the red line is the entrance. So you can see that there's this enclosure here, and there's a church inside and houses all around. Hey, hi Satyam. What's interesting about this is that the women own these houses in their own personal private names. And that is why, during the alteration, when most monasteries and convents were confiscated and sold off, these were never sold off because the women owned them. They weren't owned by the church. So that was a huge, big difference. So let's see what's, above the gate here. The gate is only from 1574, so that came a bit later. And here, above the gate, is Ursula again. Eh? So this is the older statue of Ursula with some of her 11 virgins underneath her cape. And what she's wearing is a gold belt. And this shows her status as a princess. So it's like a princely thing. Okay, so there's a couple of... I'm not going to go in there now. I'm just going to stay out here. There are a couple of other things I want to show you. Inside, this is the gables on one of the buildings. And it's the most fancy gable in there. It's not a gable stone, it's actually at the top of the building. And It's from 1740, it's Louis XIV style, and it's Mary as a mother, because there she is with a child, with a partly bare breast, and she's obviously feeding the child, and then she's shown as a virgin. She's standing, you can't see it quite so clearly on this one. It's very difficult to zoom in on this and get a good picture, but she's standing on a crescent moon, and that is a symbol of chastity, and she's wearing a crown. Okay, that's the crown's meant to be, it crowns the whole gable, but it's also crowning her as the mother of Christ. Okay, that's the one thing I wanted to show you before I show you inside. And here is one of the statues inside. This is the statue of what the Beguines, used to look like and how they used to dress. The last Beguine, by the way, died in 1977. And the other thing I want to show you is this here, which is just as we go, and I could probably zoom in actually. There's going to be a big tour group going in just a moment. So you see over there, there's a little plaque on the wall, and that is the grave, which you can see here. The grave of Cornelia Arends. And she was a Beguine, and I'll tell you a bit more about her later. So, let's hope and pray this works properly. Here we go. So, here's going through. I did this obviously with better light, and into this wonderful, the biggest actual courtyard, Hofje type courtyard in Amsterdam. And then coming through here, you can see the little plaque on the wall, and that is actually the grave of Cornelia Arends. Now, there are a lot of stories about this, but I think the most accurate one is her parents, while she was alive, converted to Protestantism. She was horrified because she was a Catholic Beguine. And as a penance, she actually requested to be buried in the gutter instead of in holy ground. Now, she was buried in the church anyway, but her coffin 3 times reappeared in the gutter where they buried her. Where she wanted to be buried. So they got the message, and they buried her in the gutter. That's, I think, the accurate story. The other story that's often told, and I'd have to do more research to find out if this is really true or not, is that she said, because the church inside became Protestant, she said she would rather be buried in the gutter than in Protestant ground. But that's like a whole different vibe to that story, so I'm not too sure about that. Seems a bit confrontational. Anyway, let's go further. The big grass on the right, by the way, is a bleaching lawn. So women who lived in these types of places would have big grass lawns so that they could lay out sheets that they'd laundered to bleach in the sun. So that's the idea. If you're enjoying this, if you could hit the like button, please. It does help people see it, and it pops up during the week, so I get more viewers, by the way.
When did you catch such a sunny day here?
Yeah, it was a very, very lucky thing to get a sunny day here. Okay, the house straight ahead in the middle of the screen with the black door with the fan shape above it, that is the house with the very beautiful gable at the top, but there's a tree obscuring it. Okay, so it is a lovely space. I used to come and read a book here in the 90s, and unfortunately now it's very much on the tourist trail. Next thing I'd like to point out to you, you see, this is what I mean. So this is a big group going inside. There are groups that go in constantly, but luckily, I thought it was at 5 o'clock that they could shut us out. Maybe it's later. Luckily, they can have some privacy between like 6 p.m. and, I don't know, 7 a.m. or something, and they can shut out the public. Over here, there's a well, because there was always a well. People needed water, just to the left of the group of people. And beyond them, you see there is a black house. That's actually wooden. And this was built in 1530. It had a big renovation in 1888, and then again in 1957. Now, it's one of 2 wooden houses left in Amsterdam. And they're both sort of later types of wooden houses because they actually have stone sidewalls, so they're just wooden in the front. You see, this is the doorway coming up where we were the other side of that. And you can see maybe... Oh, here's the statue of the Beguine in situ, so that's what I showed you just a moment ago. And here is the original church now. Oh, my arm's getting sore. Can you hold that for a moment, Lee? Thank you. So this is not the old church like the old church in Amsterdam, but this is the old one here in the enclosure. And it's from the 1400s and rebuilt in the 1600s. It's Gothic. And it was their church. It was the Begijnhof church. But then it was given to the English Presbyterians. That was after the alteration in 1578. So this was the Amsterdam community of English Calvinists. So remember, it was Calvinist here. They actually allowed the Beguines to use it until 1607. Just a little bit of trivia. The pulpit is designed by Peter Mondrian. Okay, here's a good look at the wooden house. And down here on the left, you'll see there's an alleyway. We're going to talk about that soon. I call it Gablestone Alley. Okay, and we're going to come back to that. Okie dokie, and I think we can pause now. Okay, so this is one of the old hidden churches, the hidden chapels. It's actually called the Church of St. John and St. Ursula. Now, from 1607, they had a hidden chapel here in just a single house. So that was just, say, one window wide. And then in 1671, it was enlarged. They included two more houses, and that was from, hey, hi, Antje, the entrance and the two windows to the left were what the church was expanded to. And that was designed by Philip Wingboms. So he was the Catholic architect who did a lot of private houses. He didn't get any big city commissions. And it's an early example of what's called a gallery church. So very much like the Church of the Lamb that we went into last week, the Mennonite one, the same type of format. It got a new facade in the late 1700s, and then in the 1800s, 1883, once it was legal to be openly Catholic again, they expanded it even more with the three windows on the right. So they added two more houses and gave it this kind of bent facade, and that's where these clearly church windows were put in. So sometimes it's used every day, but if they're using it for a mass, then you can't go in. But when they're not, then it's not a problem. So beautiful, huh? And you see what I mean about the gallery format. On the right, coming into view, is a long tapestry against the wall. It's very difficult to make out, but this shows the Stille Omgang, the procession that happens annually in honor of the host. So that's what I mean. You see by the gallery, so you get levels where people can watch from a high level, join the Mass, and the Tuscan columns, and this beautiful, kind of lovely blue ceiling. I got it just between tour groups here, so it was nice to actually be able to go inside without anyone else, ever so briefly. So different, huh? Between Catholic and Protestant churches. They're just so different. Okay, now what we have here, you see this a lot down in Ghent and Bruges. Actually, is it Ghent? I get so mixed up with Ghent and Bruges. I really do. I can always forget which is which because I go to them so always at the same time. But in Ghent, there's St. Nicholas Church. And you also see St. Nicholas with a tub with three boys in it. Now the story here, 3 young boys were playing in a field, and this is during the grain harvesting time, and that night they were going home, it was late, and they lost their way. They were hungry. They stopped at a butcher's shop and they asked him for food, and he was like, yeah, sure, come on in. And once they went in, he killed them. And he cut them into little pieces and he pickled them in a barrel. 7 years passed. And then St. Nicholas just happened to be traveling through that same town. And he stopped at that same butcher's shop. And he was seeking food and shelter. And the butcher invited him in and sat him down and offered him all sorts of lovely meats to eat. And he said, no, I don't want that. Oh, no, I don't want that. Or I would like what's in that barrel over there. And the butcher ran away in great fear. St. Nicholas called after him, saying, don't run away. If you repent, you will be forgiven. But he ran away anyway. Bad move. St. Nicholas touched the barrel and said, rise up, children. And the 3 boys became whole again. And they were brought to life, resurrected. And they believed actually that they'd been sleeping the whole time and they were in paradise. And since then, St. Nicholas has been the patron saint of children. How's about that? Here we come into the chapel dedicated to the miracle. And here on the wall is some paintings. You can see at the top left is the sick man being given the host. Top right, he's vomiting. And then here's the nun taking it out of the fire on the left and holding it in her hand, which is also not burned. That's what I showed you earlier. And the next picture here on the wall painting is of it hovering in the flames and glowing with angels on either side. There's more to the story, but I'm going to tell you that another time. So let's just head out. There's the confession booths. There's stained glass windows here from the some of them from the 1950s. The Beguines in the windows there. I just cut this to get... It's a video on here. I just cut it to exclude some people who were in shot. So here's the entrance to the old church there, as I said, and just coming back here to the bleaching lawn. So this is the famous view of the Begijnhof. And yeah, it was remarkably not raining that day. And you can see there's a picture of Jesus there. So what I'll do is show you a close-up of the picture here. And this is the Sacred Heart statue. So this is Christ draped in robes, and he's pointing to the flaming heart on his chest. And behind his head is a cross come halo. So yeah, it's a very, very beautiful, peaceful space. Surprised it's open. Let's just pop in and show you this from here. It's funny going down these little streets that have been here for so many hundreds of years. Beautiful light. Also up here is going up towards the Amsterdam Museum. Oh look, we've got the Blue Hour, which is closed for renovation for some years. Oh, they always close places for years here. It's quite astonishing how they do that. Starting to look Christmassy. Okay. Now let's go back to Spui, to the square, and then we'll talk about Gablestone Alley. Oh. Oh, thank you, Madeline. Oh, I haven't seen the blue hour and the phone on the live stream for ages. Look how beautiful it looks, Lee. So what we're going to do next week is I'm going to tell you about this beautiful building.
No picture for me.
And this lovely Art Nouveau building over here. And I'll do it a little earlier so we can see more of the details. And then, of course, the Machten House. There's been so much history about that. But let's get the picture of, here we go, what I'm now calling Gablestone Alley. Okay. And let's find a nice background for the rest of the screen, because I'm going to be showing different pictures here. So, I think it fits if we use the gateway of the Begijnhof, where we were earlier. Okay, where is it? Oh, further. It's funny working with half a screen. Okay, there we go. Okay, oh. Now, Gablestone Alley. In 1961, the Gablestone Association and the Rijksmuseum and the Royal Archaeological Society actually chose a whole lot of Gablestones from old houses with a religious theme and put them on this wall here as a place of saving them, but also was a nice theme to have in the Begijnhof. And then in 2008 they were restored and recolored. So I'm going to go through all of these one by one, since this is detailed Amsterdam. So here goes. Whoops. Okay, the first one is this one. Okay, and it says Inde Salvator, okay, which is Christ the Savior. So his right hand is raised, giving a blessing, and the left hand holds the globe, the world, with a cross on top of it. That's from the 1600s. Most of these are from the 1600s. The next one is St. Jacob's Gate, or St. Jacob's Gate. That it might be that. The S is usually to signify that it's a saint. It also just might be a bearded pilgrim sitting by a gate. That's also a possibility. Amsterdam was actually a stop on the pilgrimage route to Santiago de Compostela, believe it or not, and that's because of the miracle of Amsterdam. So that might just be that. The next one is here in Helias. Okie dokie. And this is from 1 Kings 17. So basically what happened is that the prophet Elijah, with very big feet, under a tree, he's lying there under a tree and there's a raven bringing him food. Now what happened is that God punished the land of Ahab with drought and famine. The reason for doing that was that they were worshipping idols. You don't want to do that. He spared Elijah by guiding him to a remote place, and twice a day food was brought to him by a raven, and he was by a stream that gave him water. Lucky fella. Oh, I love the lights here. It's so pretty. Okay, the next one caused a little bit of a scandal when it was renovated in 2002. You can probably work out why. Anyway, this is not Eve or the apple. It shows faith. Now, the woman is standing there with her, kind of leaning there, and she's got her foot on a cornerstone. And this is symbolizing faith as the cornerstone of life. And on her right hand, she's got a heart with a burning candle. And obviously this caused a bit of upset because of the bared breast. Clearly, well, it's still there, so they got over it. Written in the book is Hic est enim opus meum, sorry. And this will translate as, for this is my place. Okay, so there we go. What have we next? We have the flight to Egypt. Now, what happened here, this is from Matthew 2. King Herod heard that a new king had been born in Bethlehem, so he had all the boys under the age of 2 murdered, so he would have no competitor. Joseph was warned in a dream, and he, Mary, and baby Jesus fled to Egypt. So that is the 3 of them there. The donkey. Here we have, I've learned a lot about Bible stories this week. Okay, here we have in Emmaus, this is Luke 24:13 to 34. And this is Jesus risen from the dead. He's in the middle. He joins 2 of his followers who are heading off somewhere. And they don't recognize him, oddly enough. And so they're off they go. And then eventually when he breaks bread later, they do recognize him. Oh, gosh. Now, okay, here we go. I think everybody knows this story. This is Abraham about to sacrifice Isaac. So we're now in Genesis 22, 10 to 13. And God tells Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac. Abraham obeys and is about to, but God stays his hand. And they end up sacrificing a ram instead. So this is actually from the old Jewish district. And because most of the ones are from New Testament, but this is about showing trust in God. That's what the message is there. And then the last one is from Daniel 3, verses 1 to 30. It's the glowing oven. Now, after the destruction of the first temple in Jerusalem, that was in BC 586, Jerusalem was conquered, or Judea was conquered by Babylonians. That's current-day Iraq. And Jews were taken to Babylon by King Nebuchadnezzar. Now, in Babylon, 3 young Jewish men refused to kneel before the king, so he had them thrown into a furnace. And they didn't burn as the angels came and extinguished the flames. And Nebuchadnezzar was so impressed that he pardoned the boys. And that's what this Gablestone is about. And this was often used by bakers, by the way, outside their businesses. So, that is Gablestone Alley. And there's a little sneaky peek through the closing doorway. And so nowadays, the Begijnhof is a foundation, owned by a foundation, and they provide rented accommodation for 110 women. These are widows or unmarried women, preferably Catholic, and over the age of 30. And they try to keep the rents below the rent subsidy level, but it's not always possible. Because they need to raise a lot of money, besides looking after the historic houses. National subsidies are decreasing. Because this is lower than the rest of the city, underneath the big grass bleaching field, they actually have water cellars and water pumps and stuff like that, because they have to really take proactive measures against flooding. They try to keep the rents as low as they can, because then the people living there can still get rental subsidy. During my sort of earlier touring days, the kind of funny thing we always used to say is that to live here, people needed to be single, chaste ladies of good repute. And how do you find them? Okay. But anyway, now I realize I haven't actually got. Oh, I know. You know, with the, how do you say, with the quiz for the slices, the last 2 weeks, the winners have not come forward and given me anywhere to post a slicey. Now, I'm pretty sure most of you have a slicey, but, let me think of a question. Okay, let me think of a question. What should we do? Okay, I'll make it easy. Beguine Cornelia Ahrens made a special request to be buried in a certain place. Where did she ask to be married? I mean, not married, buried. Where did she ask to be buried? And whoever wins this can actually, if they, then you nominate somebody for me to send this to. So anyone can enter. And there we are. Okay, you got the old hat back. So where did the guy in Cornelia Ahrens request to be buried? And that's a pleasure, Natalie. Glad you enjoyed it.
I think everyone's got one.
I know, there's so many. There's a big delay though.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, Diane. Diane, I can't remember if you have a slicey or not. If you don't, then do send me, make contact with me by email or in the Facebook group, and I'll post it off to you. And if you've already got one, you could nominate somebody else who wants one, or not, or whatever. Okay. Great. Well, thank you everybody for joining. We're going to go and have dinner now. So see you next week. Bye bye.